Hi guys, I'm Darren, and in this video we'll be checking out the new Caddx GOFILM 20 FPV bind and fly quad. So this thing right here is a brand new BNF quad from Caddx. It's a 4K 2-inch cinewhoop, and at the moment I can't really give you too many details on it because I've got this for testing and the price hasn't been announced yet, but later in the video hopefully that information will be available and I'll be able to share it at that point. But let's have a look in the box and see what we get. So here we go, this is the box. It's a nice sturdy box, so there's really not a chance of this getting damaged in transit. And on the front, it pretty much shows you what you're going to get inside. So this is a 4K 60 recording quad with a 1080p FPV image. So I'm pretty sure you can get what is inside here. 115 grams weight, so well under 250 grams when you've got your battery on there, and it's a 2-inch frame. So looking at this, we can see this big square optics here. This is an ND8 filter, so you know that this has a walk snell Moonlight system inside it basically. I don't know if other versions will come with different VTX options or analog or even just a frame only kit. This is what I've got to work with at the moment, but you can see some stuff that already stands out as being quite nice. There's an XT30 which is trapped, so it's nice and easy to unplug and plug in the battery. You can see there's some antennas at the back here, but let's take the lid off and have a look. So inside we have some protective foam, and yeah, I like getting the boring stuff out of the way. We have a micro USB cable, so yeah, shame it's not USB-C, but they actually supply the cable you can use with it, so can't really argue either way. We have the actual quad. It's got a battery strap already attached, and basically it looks like there's not a lot you need to do to get this up in the air. In the bottom of the box there is this link cable, which again, you know, this is a Moonlight kit, so this is to join the bottom and top boards, which one board is the 4K recording board, the other board is the VTX, and this is used to update the firmware. Now on my fixed wing, I just have this permanently installed, so I never have to worry about it. But on a quad, there's chances that it could potentially come off or get snagged or whatever. So maybe there'll be an option to have this permanently installed and put a protective cover on it to stop it getting it disconnected. But I'll look at that a bit later. We got this nice foam, it's actually velour covered piece just to keep the quad safe. And then we have a manual, which is not quite A4. One side is English, the other side is Chinese. But you can see we have arming and a few modes set up. So by default there is arm, which is at 1800, which is like the ELRS standard position. There's angle, horizon. They've not actually been assigned by the looks of it. It's still an auto, so I guess you can just choose the switch, but also they should probably be in different places. But we'll actually have a look at the BetaFlight setup in a minute. There's information on the Moonlight kit here, so that's how to set up and use that. So everything's provided so far. How to bind it with ELRS. I'm just going to flash it with my binding phrase. And there's also some pre-flight checks and other useful information. So as far as what you need to fly this quad, other than actually buying this, you will need an ELRS transmitter, you will need walk snail goggles or a VRX, and you will also need some batteries. Now, the recommended battery to use with this is a 4S 650 milliamp hour battery. So I got myself a couple of these Codor 650, and they're actually high volts, which is fine. And size wise, yeah, that's probably about as big as you want to go. The weight limit for batteries, they recommend less than 75 grams. So this is under that. But let's get that installed. Battery strap is just big enough. Tuck the balance lead inside there so it doesn't flap about. And then the power will just go into that block there. So yeah, that's a nice size battery. It doesn't interfere with the XT30 and also this part here. So let's take a look at the actual quad. So this is straight as it comes out of the box, and let's see what we can get off of this. So these are Caddx branded motors, 1303 and 6000 kV. They're high Q 2x2x3 props, and it is a props in configuration. We have a little rubberized pad here to keep the battery from slipping out when you've got the strap connected. And then on the front we have our camera. On the bottom we have the Moonlight actual module. So on this side you can see the SD card slot and the two connectors here for the USB jumper. On the back we have the antenna connectors which come out and are routed into two monopole antennas. That's actually quite a neat install. While we're here we have our ELRS 2.4 antenna. On sort of like this front quarter we have our binding button. The actual connection to the flight controller is under there, so it's well hidden and well protected by that piece of frame. But yeah, you've got your lights there, and that's basically the whole FPV setup. You don't need to worry about anything. This whole front section here, you can adjust the angle of the camera with the two screws there, and this whole section is TPU mounted to take vibration out. So yeah, that's quite cool. I think this is just for looks. I don't think it really does much. It's just screwed on there. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. There is bottom protection here for the camera, so if you hit a rock or anything, it's not actually going to break anything. And yeah, it comes with the ND8 filter as standard, but if other filters are released, obviously you could swap them out, or you could take it off and run it without a filter. There's really not a lot more to say about this. You can just about see the flight controller in there. This is actually a Caddx flight controller. The annoying part potentially is the USB position. It looks like it might be quite tricky to get the USB in. So let's have a quick go. Right, so this is the supplied cable, and let's just try putting it in through here. Actually, it's not too bad. I thought it would be worse than that, but yeah, it's not too bad. The USB is in. It is quite close to the motors, so if you're doing a motor test for direction or anything like that, it's a bit close. That's the only sort of downside, so maybe watch that, make sure it's out of the way. Is there anything else I can actually see on the flight controller? I was looking for maybe a boot button or bind button. No, I can't actually see anything. But let's get this connected and see what we have. I've just plugged it in and it's gone straight into BetaFlight. Let's have a quick look at what we've got in the setup. So we have VTX set up on UART1, we have serial on UART2, and we have UART3 and UART6 that don't appear to have anything on there. So they're spares potentially. Something else could be added. Configuration, it's already filled it in quite a bit. They've given the craft a name, give a pilot name on there. The arming angle has been automatically set to 180 degrees. GPS, again, you could potentially have that if there's a spare UART. One thing I don't think there is on this board is an I2C, so unfortunately compass probably isn't supported. Let me just do save and reboot. I've added my pilot name, that's the important thing. Right, now one thing that I do know is on this board is a barometer. At the moment it's using a standard BetaFlight target, but I believe the guys at Caddx are actually working to have a specific target for this flight controller for both iNav and BetaFlight. So this should all be set up when you get it, but I know there is a barometer on this board, so I'm just going to enable it now. Right, so to enable the baro, we need to set resource for SCL2 to B10, SDA2 to B11, and we need to set the baro bus type to I2C and the baro I2C device to 2. Once we've done that, we can save. And when we come back, we should hopefully have a barometer. All right, it's not there at the moment, so let's go to configuration and let's enable it. Let's do save and reboot. And there we go, we have our barometer working. As I say, you may not need to do this. If a target is specific to that flight controller, it should automatically have a barometer defined, but I will leave the CLI in the video description just in case you need it. Now, the PIDs have been tuned already, so all this sort of stuff you shouldn't need to touch. I believe they are actually having it gone over by a pretty good quad tuner just to make sure that he's happy with the defaults. I guess if he's not, they will be set in the target as well. But yeah, you shouldn't need to really change these. You may need to change the rates so they suit you a bit better. As far as modes go, so yeah, we have turtle mode on channel 8, arming on channel 5. I really do hate this with BetaFlight. They start at 1 with auxiliary. Yeah, arming is channel 5, angle and horizon is on channel 3, channel 6, beeper is on channel 7, and turtle mode is on channel 8. I will be changing these. I've got all my quads set up the same as far as the modes go, so I will just be setting that up. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is actually set up my receiver and get that working so we can hook it up to a transmitter and take a look on there. So I'm just about to flash ELRS, but before I do, I thought I'd check with the web interface to see which receiver it is. So it identifies as a happy model EP1, EP2, so that's all you need to know about. It's shipping with 3.0.1, so yeah, I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I've got my transmitter set up. We are actually bound. You can see in there we've got a little C for connected, so it's all bound. If you see on the screen, you see I've changed my arming range. That's because I've changed this, and when it is low now, it is armed. So don't worry, my ELRS is set up properly. So yeah, I'm just going to go through and we'll have a quick look now that we have everything with the receiver set up. We can see everything set up right. So my arming switch, angle, horizon and acro. I have my beeper switch, so it's on there. I have pit mode, which I don't actually use, to be honest, so we can get rid of pit mode. And I have my turtle mode. So yeah, the only thing I was missing was the black box recording when I'm armed. So yeah, let's save that. So we're all set up. Let's have a quick look on the receiver page. And of course we want 2000 to 2000, so they need a little bit of adjustment. I prefer to do it in the radio. You can use the RX range command, but I prefer to do it on the outputs page of the radio. So if you don't know, if you want to do it on the radio, you go to the outputs page and you've got minimum and maximum. You just set those to the values so that when you do that stick command, it's at 1000 and 2000. The other thing that you want to do is, if you have it on, you want to turn off the filtering, the ADC filtering for your gimbals. I have it turned off on this radio because I only use it for quads, so it's off all the time on here. Okay, so that's all set up now. Just in case you're new to this, if you go top right, all the sliders should go to 2000. If you go bottom left, they should all go to 1000, and centered they should be 1500. So we're looking pretty good here. The only other thing we can really test is Failsafe. So let me see how they've got this set up. So in the Failsafe, we've just got it set to drop, which is fine. There's no GPS on this at the moment, so drop is the safest thing to do. So what do we do to test Failsafe? Well, we see up here we've got a little parachute. At the moment it's grey. What we need to do is just
Receiver still connected.
Turn our transmitter off. If it asks you to confirm because the receiver's connected, say yes, enter. And once that's switched off, the parachute should actually go red, which it isn't doing. However, we have a red light there.
Welcome to Edge TX.
Okay, so it knew that it didn't have a connection, so maybe it's just that BetaFlight is not reporting it. But the receiver was blinking, it knew it didn't have a connection, it should have said it's in Failsafe, but unfortunately it didn't show up here. Okay, so BetaFlight is weird. It knows it's got RX loss, but it's not showing the parachute, which is really, really helpful. Thank you, BetaFlight. So this is actually in Failsafe. It's reporting the arming flags. It can't arm because there's RX loss, but yeah, it's just not showing Failsafe here. So to test Failsafe is a bit trickier in BetaFlight. You have to go in CLI, type status, and find out what the hell it's doing. Why, I don't know. But anyway, enough of that. Motors and everything like that should be set up. It's got bidirectional def shot already, so that's good. OSD is the other thing. I'm gonna import this. The only other things that we could do is set the battery. So we have capacity milliamp hours. I'm using 650 milliamp hour. It's actually a high volt, so that should be okay, I think. What are we? 4.35. So I'm going to set that to 4.4 just to make sure. And let's save that. So we should have our capacity and everything sorted now. We could run about a proper calibration to get the current right, but hopefully these are pretty decent. We'll see. But yeah, that's the basic setup in BetaFlight. So what I'm going to do is fly this about for a few weeks, and then I'll wrap the video up after I've done that. So it's been a little while since I made that first part of the video. I actually recorded it on the 10th of March. Today is the 28th of April, so it's been about a month, 2 weeks, month, 3 weeks, something like that. But yeah, I've been flying this little thing all the time, or whenever I've had the chance. And this is sort of the wrap up to the whole unboxing thing. So bearing in mind that I'm not the best quad pilot, I'm still fairly new, so I'm taking this at sort of like a beginner level. I thought I would share my findings and my thoughts on this quad. But first, let's take a look and see what damage there is. So this has been flown quite a few times, and as you can see, it actually looks as it did when it came out the box. And that includes the missing screws. Now, this is my first quad that has these style props. So I didn't actually realize the screws were missing when it came out the box, but it's been flying for almost 2 months like this. The only reason I found out is because after a crash, I put it into total mode, and when I flipped over, one of the props was staring right at my face. That's the only reason I found out, because the prop had come off and I noticed that there was nothing to actually retain it. I just checked the unboxing footage, and yeah, they weren't included in the box. I've made Caddx aware of this, so hopefully that won't happen in the future, but just bear in mind to check that you have got screws, and obviously make sure that they're tight. These things you don't use Loctite on, so you just need to check them every once in a while. You can see there's plenty of dirt on my props. There's a little bit of scuffing. It's not too bad actually. Yeah, there's absolutely no real signs of damage. There's obviously lots of signs of mud or scratches, but you can see I've been having fun with this thing. What I was trying to look for was any signs of weakness on the frame. You can see where it's buckled. The prop has actually scored it along here, but yeah, there's no sort of lines across for weakness fractures. I know some guys have actually had the frame snap, so I think either they've been really unlucky or they've had a pretty decent crash. Caddx are looking at supplying the actual squishy frame parts, so if they do crack or need replacing, you will be able to replace them in the future. As far as other things to check, when I first powered mine up, the Moonlight was set to 1080p, so if you want to fly it with 4K, just make sure to double check your settings before you first take off, and a couple of bits like that. That camera cable has popped out a little bit, so let's poke it back in. But yeah, this has flown a lot, this has crashed a lot, and it's done really well, I think. My biggest issue with this whole platform is around the camera area. Now, it's nothing to do with what you may have seen on other videos where they're saying that this is moving too much. I don't find that the case at all. I think in flight this takes out all the jello. It looks really nice and smooth in flight. My biggest issue is, you may have seen on another video, this can slide forward if you crash and you end up with the camera rotated downwards, so you get negative angle. That flap covers the front of your lens a bit, Also, if you're using bigger batteries, they can catch. But my biggest issue is there's no real way to lock the angle. Unfortunately, it's a space thing. There's not really a lot of space to get a bit more TPU down there to get a screw in the bottom hole to lock the angle. If you could lock the angle off, I really wouldn't have a problem. Stuff moving in crashes, it's a crash, it's going to happen. It's just one of those things. It'd be nice if there was a way to secure the angle so you don't have to keep readjusting it. Yeah, it's a little niggle. Other things that people sometimes have problem with is this cable here. As long as you get it in the right way up, it's not really an issue. I've not really had a problem. Access to these is not an issue at all. Getting the SD card out, ideally you want some tweezers or something, or turn it upside down and flick it, because it is a bit of a pain to get the SD card out, I'm not going to lie. It would be nice if there was a little bit more space above it so you could get like a fingernail or something in, but if you're using tweezers, it's not really an issue. Putting it back in, as you saw, not a problem. Someone in another video pointed out that this cable is quite tight, which it is. I've not really had any issues with it. You can see I've crashed it. There's not really any damage to the UFL connector, and you know, these connectors are pretty weak. So I think if it was going to get damaged, it would have by now. These parts here are only press fitted in, but they're reasonably rigid, and it's probably nice to have a bit of movement just pushing it down if there's going to be a crash. It's easy enough to slide them back in. I did see in a video people wondering why these aren't dipoles, and one particular video actually saying that it should be a big Omni with an internal right hand polarized and left hand polarized. Honestly, I think this setup is perfect for this sort of quad. Basically, with the linear going to the circular polarized on the receiver, you're losing 3 dB, which is, you know, half. It's not an insignificant number, but this is a 6-minute quad if you're flying gently, a 3-minute quad if you're not. You're not going to go far in that time at all. And I've never had a problem with the video cutting out with this thing. It's been solid the whole time. There's no real reason to change the antennas. And also the whole left hand and right hand circular polarized mix, it's only really going to be relevant if you're in a high reflection area like a bando or something like that. This isn't really made for bando bashing. If you do that, you're probably going to break it and smash it. This is primarily a cinewhoop. It's made to get scenery. Maybe you're doing it indoors, in which case the reflections might be useful, but I'd imagine most of the time this is going to be flown outdoors, and it's either going to be flown for cinematic footage, which the Moonlight does very well, or for fun. I've been flying this for fun. I get out there, I plug a battery in, and instantly my attention is, ooh, can I have some fun today? So I've not been flying this slowly. I've been getting sort of 3.5 minute battery time, that sort of thing. It's a fun quad to me, and it flies really well. Even though I would prefer this as vertical, again, for the amount of distance you're doing, it's really not going to matter. It's absolutely fine as it is. This battery thing, I think, could have been done with being a little bit stickier. I have had crashes where the battery has moved forward a bit and sort of wedged on the plastic, but it's, you know, it's a tiny thing. One thing I have found with this is it's easier to undo the battery strap, plug the battery in, lay it down, and then do the strap up. It was an easier way rather than having the battery secured and then plug it in. So other than the stuff I've just covered, what have I been doing with this? Well, I've basically kept all the standard settings that I got on the quad with BetaFlight. The only thing I changed was the mode switch page to make it for my layout. I updated the ELRS and I changed the OSD layout. While on the subject of the OSD, on this one, when it came, the OSD size was incorrect. It was set to, I think it was 50 on the columns and 18 on the rows, where it should be 53 on the columns and 20 on the rows. So you get a bit more OSD. Other than that, I've basically had everything as standard. With regards to the BetaFlight setup, I don't know if what I've been flying is what comes in the box now. I know that Caddx sent this out to a well-renowned quad tuning guy, so maybe that tune is on there and it flies even better now. But with the stock tune, it flew really well. As I said, I'm not the best pilot. I can sort of go fast and do flips and stuff, but I'm still not very good at flying slow. But this thing, I actually managed it quite well. I would be able to land where I wanted to without sort of flipping upside down half the time. Yeah, you can laugh if you want, I don't care. But yeah, other than that, the biggest issue I found was there was a bit of prop wash when you come out of moves. Now, again, I watched someone else's video reviewing this thing, and they said if you exit the dive or whatever at a different angle, you can actually completely get rid of a prop wash with your flying style. Obviously, it's above my pay grade at the moment, but yeah, I've been coming down and you get a little bit of prop wash, but never enough to actually disturb it so that it's uncontrollable or anything. It's just a little bit of jiggle, so it doesn't look good in the camera, and then it carries on. Everything is great. Would I recommend this quad? Yeah. It's actually really good. I fly this a lot. I really need to get more batteries for it. With regard to the batteries, I was flying the 650 milliamp hour packs that you saw in the unboxing section, and for me it works out about right. I think you could go a bigger pack which is heavier. I don't think the quad would fly so well. In fact, I know some of the other guys in the Walks Now testing group have tried this and it just doesn't fly so good on the heavier batteries. And actually one of the guys, Breeze, recommends the 550R lines. They're a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter probably, and it flies apparently really well. I mean, this guy is like next level freestyle. I'm down here, he's like way up here. So he knows what he's talking about. And he would recommend the 550 milliamp hour R lines. But for me, the little 650s were absolutely fine. I got a decent amount of flight time. I had a lot of fun. They didn't really seem to sag. I didn't lose video or anything like that. So absolutely great. As far as the price goes, let's check on the website. Right, so CaddxFPV website, the first thing we see is the GOFILM 20, and it is $400. I have had a look around at other quads, this sort of size, this sort of spec, and actually, ballpark is about right. There are some slightly cheaper, there are some, or actually a fair amount more, that are more expensive. So it's a reasonable price, and it actually flies really well. I'm very happy with this. For Caddx first quad, yeah, they've done a very good job considering everything on this is Caddx. So what Caddx Walks Now system, which out of that $400, that's $190 of the cost on its own. The motors are all Caddx branded. Maybe they've been made by someone else, but still it's their own motor. The flight controller is their own flight controller, which is a 25mm all-in-one, which has everything crammed on there. It's barometer, even got spare UART, so you could put a GPS on it. The only thing it was lacking as far as breakout went was the I2C if you wanted to put a compass on. But both BetaFlight and iNav now don't require a compass for quad navigation. So you could put a really small GPS on here and have a navigational quad with iNav. Well, when a target exists, I should caveat that. I know that it's being worked on. So hopefully in the future there'll be an iNav target for this if you want to go that route. But for me, I was quite happy just having BetaFlight on it and having fun. A lot of people are comparing this to the Avatar 2 or even the original Avatar. And in my personal opinion, nah. They're completely different tools. The Avatar and the Avatar 2 are basically flying tripods with a camera on. That's not what this is aimed at. You can do obviously cinematic footage if you want, but it is a lot more versatile. This is for creating dynamic footage if you're looking at that sort of thing. You need to be able to pilot this rather than letting DJI pilot it for you, even if DJI now has a button to do a roll. Reminds me of those Cheerson things. But still, yeah, this is a proper quad. It's not a flying tripod. So if you're looking for something that flies itself and does all the follow me and all that, no, it's not that type of thing. This is if you want to create footage, I don't know, takes people like maybe Johnny FPV who do like dynamic cinematic footage where they go through car windows and stuff. This would be more suited to that than a DJI Avata. So yeah, This is not a comparison for an Avatar, it's a completely different quad. This is more compared to like a Pavo 20, that sort of thing. I mentioned that I still see myself as a beginner. Would this be suitable for a beginner? And I think, yes, it would. It's well protected because it's got all these bumpers around the props. It's quite small, so you're not really going to hurt anyone. This, any day of the week, will come up under 250 grams. The motors on this are reasonably powerful for this size quad. So maybe reduce the amount of throttle available. But yeah, I think there's no real reason why a beginner couldn't start with this quad. It's absolutely fine. You're not going to get any more or less control than you would anything else. This was my first quad. Well, a version of it. I've changed the motors and flight controller, but pretty much everything else is the same. Yeah, so I was flying about on acro, crashing this a lot. I think this would actually have been a better thing to learn on because I wouldn't have broken so many props. And this actually flies a bit better than this does, especially for slower stuff, which is good for beginners. I usually like to try and provide sort of information so you can make a decision. But this one I've had so much fun with and enjoyed flying so much, I would recommend it. It's, yeah, if you're sat on the fence, then go for it. You're not going to be disappointed. It's a great little quad. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and you'll get informed about new content that comes along you may also find interesting. It will also help share this with other people and they might find it useful too. Also, I've just cracked 9,000 subscribers, so thank you very much, guys. It really is appreciated, and thank you to my patrons for their support. I know I've been very quiet at the moment because work's been busy. Hopefully that will quieten down reasonably soon, but thank you very much for staying with me. I really do appreciate it. Nice weather is coming. Fly models like you style them. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.